Welcome to the Six Figure Personal Stylist Podcast, the ultimate no BS business podcast for ambitious personal stylists ready to build a six-figure and beyond personal styling business. You won't hear the typical snooze fest business advice that most personal stylists get told all of the time. Nope, instead, I'll be sharing business building strategies that will help you create a killer personal brand, a cult following of loyal personal styling clients, and make a ton of cash while creating lasting style transformations for your clients. I'm Nicole Achi, your host and a former personal stylist of 14 years who built a lucrative styling business in 3 major cities, but only after spending years trying to crack the six-figure styling business code without burning out. And now I'm here to tell you how to do exactly the same. Let's get into it. Welcome to a fresh episode of the podcast. Today we're tackling a really important topic, how to create a six-figure styling experience for your clients. So important because when you have a great client experience, it basically helps you be marketed by your clients for free. I feel real strongly about having great client experiences for that reason. And it also improves your retention, which means that you are not going to have to work as hard for new clients. We'll get into some interesting stats about that in a sec. And last, so many of you reach out and say that you have identified as a transformational stylist. So if you do, this is really important for you. It's important for all stylists, but one of the things psychologically that lots of us miss as stylists when we think of ourselves as transformational is that it's not just like how good of a stylist we are or how sensitive we are to our clients. Although those things are obviously important. It's whether or not we are capable beyond the close of creating an experience in our business for our clients to have a transformation. If the soil is not good, you cannot try to plant new thoughts and new ideas and new ways of looking at themselves in your client's mind because they're going to be so uncomfortable with their client experience. So they can't, bloom into the person they're supposed to be if the experience of the styling service, the follow-up, the communication, the expectations, the boundaries, honestly, which most people need, are not there. It leaves the client in a place where they're a little unsure about you. And when someone's a little unsure about you, they can't go in and do the deep work. And what's interesting is I can even see, I have a very high repeat client rate. I'm just so fortunate and just love my clients so much. And I can see that when the first time somebody works with me, they get a result, but they get a really deep result when they continue working with me because they are more comfortable. They're like more safe feeling. And I've talked to many of you who have noticed that you really prefer a longer client experience because you can get okay results in a month, but you can get even better in say 3 months or, whatever that looks like in your styling packages, whatever the length is you prefer to get the transformation you feel connected and committed to. And so if you don't set up the client experience from the first minute someone hires you, and honestly, I would argue the sales call or even before that, if you don't create that experience, that's why, on your marketing and in your social media and stuff, you have to build it like it's a relationship. You cannot build it like I'm talking to the internet out there. It doesn't work that way because they are getting an impression and when they're experiencing you in your marketing. And if you can speed that up, you should, so that you can then speed up the rate that they feel safe within the styling container when they hire you. This is all connected. Like I've said a million times, your business is not a bunch of separate things like your marketing over here, your services over there, whatever over here, your pricing. It is all connected. Your sales conversation completely connected to how you do business in general. Completely connected to the experience you want that person to have because that's the call that they decide if they're going to be truthful with you. So if you don't have sales skills, if you don't know how to run these things, you are creating an environment. I wish I could go back and tell myself this years ago, where you are not truly facilitating the level of transformation that you could. When I look back now, I think I cannot believe that so many of the coaches and people that I hired didn't tell me how not being able to navigate a sales call drastically impacts how that client, even if they hire you, handles the environment of the coaching package or the styling package or whatever. It just does. They may still hire you, but they might not be as all in as they could be. So that's why these skills are so important, because you can't be a great stylist without them. I don't care how good your eye is, you cannot. People have a psychological landscape that we have to make suitable for the transformation of styling to take place. So what are some of the signs and why does this matter so much? Some of the signs that I see that are really indicative of stylists not having the best client experience. Now, this doesn't mean people are like complaining about you. As a matter of fact, what will happen is you will just hear from no one. It's likely the case that no one's like, this was terrible, blah, blah, blah. And they might even be like, oh yeah, I like things. But the number one way you know that client had a transformation isn't that they told you. It isn't their testimonial. It's that they came back. I'm not saying you didn't get a transformation before if they don't come back. I'm saying that the one way you know you got it is if they come back. And I think all of us know you need to work with a client more than once to truly get the depth of experience. So if you are a stylist, again, that wants to be transformational, you have to be in it for the long game. Doesn't mean your services all have to be a year, but it does mean that you need to create a client experience that helps usher in that possibility. So if you're in client experiences and you aren't seeing that 30 to 40% kind of established clients coming back, that I think is really what most stylists I work with have. If you can't get yourself there, you're going to burn out really fast in your business too. So client experience also just helps you have a better experience of your business, because the probability of selling an existing client is 60 to 70%. 60 to 70%. Do you know how hard it is to get a new client from your marketing? If it's bad, 5% of people that like really pay attention to your marketing, really keep looking at it, really are interested in really digging a little bit deeper, like they're going down to your feed from your stories, or they're reading your blogs, or listening to your podcast, 5% will actually convert. On the high end, you have really potent marketing, 20% will. So that's like a big difference. If you can get 60 to 70% of the people you work with to say yes again, it just made your life a lot easier, because if you have, say, I don't know, an average rate of converting new prospects, say you're 10%, then you still are not going to have a lot of business. So why not tap into people that are excited to say yes? A statistic I recently saw in a article by Small Biz Genius was talking about how 65% of small businesses' revenue is made up by existing clients. Like, what? 65%. I'm only saying 30 to 40% of yours, and get your marketing right and tight. But that's how the majority of businesses that are doing really well are doing really well. So client experience is not negotiable. And what are the signs that we need to up our game here? Because like I said, people aren't usually going to tell you, you're just never going to hear from them. So the first one is client ghosting, but I mean clients, meaning they've signed and paid you and you're not hearing from them, or it's taking them a really long time to get back to you. Now, in 100% of the cases, I cannot say that it is your client experience that's the problem, but if it happens to you pretty frequently, particularly as a virtual stylist, you have to get the systems in your business going. You have to start creating a persona that is like, here's how this experience is going to work. I'm going to give you a few chances, but if you're not going to get on board with me, we're going to have a face-to-face conversation or an on the phone conversation about this. Like, you cannot let people just go weeks without getting back to you and not create a boundary around that. This is why you should have a contract. It truly changes behavior. So clients, they've signed, they've paid, you suspect it's because maybe they feel bad about something that happened or whatever, and you're not going and addressing that, and you have no way of doing that in your business right now, like a system for that. That's probably part of your client experience falling off and not being where it should be. If you have like a really hard time following up with established clients and inviting them to work with you again, you could probably do some really easy things in your client experience in order to make that sales super easy. I teach that in my program, Income Accelerator. I learned this lesson myself. And when I started creating an onboarding system that really encouraged people to work with me again, it really changed the game. And then I went and got sales skills, and that changed the game even more. And so those are the things that I think can always really be tightened up to make your client experience better. The third one that I see a lot that is a really good indicator that we have some work to do on our client experience in our business is just having a lot of assumptions that we throw out very casually about our clients' interest. Like if you feel like your established clients work with you, they seem like they had a good experience, but you are not comfortable or sure because they told you no, that they want to work with you again. Like if you're not comfortable reaching out and saying like, hey, I'm booking for fall, would love to work with you, because you're in a position where you just assume, well, if they wanted to, they would. We have a client experience problem because you're not looking at your relationship with your client the right way. You're looking at it as like, probably in a way that feels kind of salesy in a gross way. And if you have a real relationship with your clients as a stylist, which you should, then you shouldn't feel weird about that reach out. And if you feel good about your business and your services, then and you feel like you get results, then you really shouldn't feel that way. So there's something to look at in your business either way. Maybe it's the systems, or maybe it's that you don't feel as confident as you want to about your services, let alone your client experience. So if you make a lot of assumptions of if they wanted to, they would, in terms of reaching out with your clients, that's probably something we need to look at with client experience. If you feel, lastly, like your interactions with clients are incomplete, like you feel like you end a service, but you don't have a way of gracefully following up, or you just kind of don't really know how to end it. You don't know how to wrap it up. That's a big one I hear from stylists, even really established ones. They're like, everything's going fine in my business. And then like on call 6, they'll tell me like, actually, I don't really know how to wrap up a client experience. And now that I see all this, I'm like, wow, I probably am losing a lot of money. And let me tell you, you are. So let's just fix that because there's no need. So if any of these resonate with you, you're just not alone. I mean, I didn't get this list from, talking to one stylist. I've gotten it from being a stylist and talked to lots of them over the past couple years. But the good news is that really all you need to do is put some upfront time into your client experience. And, I think the more excited you are about your services, the easier it is to make a good client experience. So that's just like an aside. If you're not excited about your services, it may be because you haven't, worked with a certain target market that long, and we still need to refine, and all that's great. But you should know your target market so well that it's not hard for you to figure out ways to like add in little surprises or make the experience better. So don't keep changing your services. Try to make them better, because you're going to end up in the same place as before if you keep changing them, right? And because your client experience is such an important part of the health of your business, and also to you just feeling like an expert, it's so worth doing the work. One of the things that's going to make a huge difference in your client experience is really looking at your systems, which I know, again, every time I see systems, I feel like I'm saying like the least sexy thing I could say to you. And I'm trying to think of another way to say it. So I've used client experience, and not all of client experience is your systems. I think that your client experience is made up of your sales skills, your marketing, your systems, and your, how your services work, the energy you bring to your client interactions. That's why your self-concept I talked about on an earlier podcast episode is so, so important, because if we're beating ourselves up a lot, there's an energy that comes with us with that. And it often leaks out, even if we're not saying it, around the client. So systems are so important because they're such a huge chunk of those things that are the client experience. And when you're busy, or you're in a weird emotional place, or you have stuff going on in your personal life, it can be hard to remember all of the touch points that make a great client experience, because, if you're doing a good one, it should have multiple. And so you can just kind of be overwhelmed, your head down, trying to get more clients or trying to deliver things to the clients you have. When you have the system set up in your business that just do this for you, you don't have to worry about that. You just, all this weight just kind of like lifts, and you have more mental space to deal with your business. So systems are amazing because they help you stay on track when you have a lot going on. They're also going to create a sense of safety in your client experience, because the person on the other end of that experiencing the system is like, wow, they thought of everything, I recently had an onboarding experience with a VA company that I just hired, and it was such a great experience. Like I even have like a client, I don't want to say success manager, but we'll call it that, a concierge, and she talks to the other, VAs that I work with and that help me, and, pitches in when I need a little extra help or explains things to me. It's such a nice experience to have this onboarding call, right? I never would have expected that. I've never had that experience before. The touch points are really great. Very responsive. We have a Slack channel we use, Their energy is just happy. Like, I love paying these people. I love it. That's what I want for you, okay? Because I feel so safe to ask questions in this container with my virtual assistant firm. And like, I struggle with a lot of tech stuff. And I know that if I ask them, I'm never going to be made to feel dumb. And there's a way for me to ask that makes me not feel like I'm overstepping my bounds. So you want to make all of that kind of communication stuff super clear. Do you expect clients to text you 24 hours a day? People will do it not meaning to. But when you say like, you can only, text me till the 4, oddly, that boundary makes them feel safer than if you just let them do whatever they want. Because when they do text you at 3 o'clock or whatever, they will know they're not making a bad impression in your mind. That's what's so important about systems, is that when we're really clear with people about what this experience is going to be like, they can behave relaxed because they know the expectations and we know the expectations. And then if they don't behave in the way that we have laid out as the acceptable course of action, we have plenty of justification for saying, hey, this isn't a good fit, in terminating the contract. And so this is why stylists struggle. You only have to have a few bad experiences with a client, a few bad experiences of somebody not paying you on time or whatever, before you start to think, maybe I need to make this better. We tend to think of it from like what's happening to us in our business when we go towards systems. And that's important. I want you to have a great relationship with your business, but it's also important to remember what systems do for the people that we're helping. Particularly because I've talked about before, it's vulnerable, right? It is a vulnerable experience for people. So I think that is one thing to really think about too in this. Another thing that's really cool is that when you have really good systems that are client-led and you have a really good client experience, you can ask for things like referrals and testimonials in a way that feels super clean and not weird. When you fall off in your client communication and then you ask for something at the end, you're either not going to get, as glowing a review, or you may just get silence. And so for the whole health of your business, getting testimonials, getting referrals, getting that client to come back themselves, all of that, the fact that you need, consistent clients to make your services better for other clients, like all of it works together. So when you have systems as part of your client experience setup, you can find ways, I teach it in my program, to make the ask for certain things you need to continue to run your business well. Social proof, things like that, testimonials. You can get it in a way that feels really good. And because the rest of your client experience was great, it's not hard for the client to have something to say. So that's part of it. Like, what do you want those testimonials to say? This is why your service is connected to every other part of your business. Because if you can talk about that in your marketing, then basically your service just markets itself. And that's why all of this type of thing is so interconnected and related, and why systems are so important. The parts of the systems, like collecting payment and making sure you have a way to have people sign contracts, and having, there's in a big styling service, there should be between 10 and 12 touch points that a stylist should have. I'm averaging that with like the bigger packages that I see. So like you're doing everything from sales call, style discovery, closet edit or review, shopping, 1 to 2 shops, maybe more, whatever, styling session, lookbook, offboarding. And if you have, follow-up support in that, okay, there could even be more. But that's a lot of touch points, 10 to 12, like on average. If that's the case and you have more than one client, how are you going to not let processes fall off? Maybe you don't have processes at all for that very reason. But if you had them and you had them automated, it would change the game for you, for your peace of mind, and obviously for your business. But the part, again, we don't see is the benefits to your clients are, we find safety through consistency. So when you have reliable processes, you can create that sense of security for your client. They can relax, they can go deeper into the experience. It creates a sense of personalization. Your systems can allow you to demonstrate your attention to detail and your ability to expect in advance what your client's going to need because you know them so well. It's going to enhance your communication, and it's going to enhance their communication when you have this kind of stuff handled, because when someone can see that you're diligent but not overdoing it, which is what systems help you do, they help you kind of rein in your people pleasing, because you have to make them for everyone, right? Who goes to the service, not just for certain people. And you shouldn't be changing your actions based on the client's behavior in your service. That should be like templated and it should always work the same way. If a client makes a weird comment and you think they didn't like anything you pulled for them, you don't then not email them. Like if you're someone that's really driven by emotion and you go back and forth over like, should I send this email or not? When you would send it to a client that like didn't just make a weird comment at you in a dressing room, then you're someone that needs the space that systems will give you and that client experience will give you. Because you can be sure and much more confident that if you would send the email to every other client and not one that just kind of snubbed you, then you're probably cutting corners in other places that could then be enhancing that bad experience for a client and not even realize it, right? Because we don't realize it. So what are the elements that make really effective systems that are going to help you get around some of this and like put in the boundaries for you and just make everything so much better in your business? Number one, onboarding, contracts, always giving what's next information, client prep emails, highlights about the way things are going to be working and expectations, how often they text you, what your communication policies are, any additional fees for repulling clothes, or what happens if they don't order in enough time, what sizes, all of it. When different calls are going to be, all your calls or all your appointments with clients should be booked on your calendar and theirs, like right after you take payment. All of it's really important. Okay, so onboarding, so important. Style discovery. Now, I feel weird saying this, but I have now talked to so many stylists through this podcast who don't have a style discovery process. They don't have a process of looking through inspiration. They don't have a way of helping give their client a language with style. And that's a problem. If you are transformational, I think that anyone can do styling in a whole different set of ways, but forget styling for a sec. From a business perspective, not having client discovery, not having a process where I, as the client, can share with you what's going on with me before we really get into the work so I can get where you're coming from is deeply problematic. And style discovery is not just a new client form. It's like being able to see what your client thinks is edgy, right? It's being able to see the translation of what your client thinks is, romantic with a twist or whatever. You need to know what they code as their visual language when they're speaking to you. And you can't do that without style discovery. So that's something that I think is incredibly important. It also shows the client that you care about them. It's not just you putting your style on them. So if you feel like you need to prove like, I don't make everybody look the same, it shouldn't even be something you have to argue about in your marketing, because it should be like, I have this process that I do X, Y, and Z in so that all of my clients get a different result, so that I am listening to you, so that I am locked in on you. That will take care of a lot of that messaging for the record, which is why I'm saying everything in your business is connected, because if you could have a good style discovery process, your marketing just got better by that little point alone. It also allows you, when you have style discovery, to set realistic expectations with clients to make them aware of their role in the process, that you're not a mind reader, but also that maybe their expectations are off because they have such different and strange types of style competing with each other. It's not our job as stylists to have to guess everything, because we're not going to guess right. And so you might as well have a process that makes the client have to use their language to bring clarity to the process. The next one that's super important in terms of what you should have for systems is just a communication email kind of flow. You want to have a series of emails that drip out, either because you use Honeybook or something like that, or you can do canned emails in Gmail or whatever, that after every single touch point with the client, they know what's next. Until the day that you formally offboard them and tell them we are now done, you have to have all of that kind of communication just ready to rock and roll for every service, no matter what. And you have to have, lastly, feedback loops. So you have to have places in the actual process where you reach out outside of the one-on-one appointment, where you give them a chance to share what's happening with them. This is one that surprises people. And I find that the better your relationships are with clients, the less this has to be formalized. I have really good relationships with my clients. I talk to them all the time, even when we're not in an active package. They DM me, they send me stuff, they email me, they give me their feedback on podcasts. I have such an incredible relationship with my established clients, even if they've only hired me for one package or one program or one $500 call that they did with me a while ago. Whatever that looks like, I have great relationships. So I ask for their feedback often in general, and I definitely ask for it. I have a whole part of a call that I use with my one-on-one clients where we're just kind of learning about how they felt about the last call and like where they are and are they overwhelmed and what do we have to handle before we go into new stuff. So I think all of that is incredibly important, and you want to have specific touch points within your services that allow that interaction to happen that's outside of being in the dressing room or outside of the closet edit, right? They're just going to be in a better space for it. And then on an ongoing basis, you want to have touch points where you're going back to established clients, whether they're hiring you or not. I have a whole system in my Income Accelerator where I teach stylists how to continue to give value in a way that isn't overdoing it or whatever, but that encourages a client to hire you again, but also just keeps the relationship open between two people. It doesn't have to be for sales reasons. And the more you do that, it generally has a good sales end goal because people remember you. And then if they don't need to work with you again, they will refer you. So those are some of the things you can really start working on now. Get your onboarding right and tight, get your style discovery process dialed in and talk about it in your marketing. Have, ongoing communication, emails that kind of roll out as you're delivering a styling service that say like, this is what's happening next. This is what's happening next. That's really important. And then lastly, create feedback loops outside of just what's happening next. Have check-in emails or have check-in phone calls, have check-in, have lunch with them, whatever it looks like based on the kind of business you have. Send them a DM, send them voice memos every quarter, send them a group, established client newsletter, whatever it looks like. Make sure that you're offering the opportunity for feedback in the styling container, but outside of it as well for future touch points with you. All of that's going to be key. Some of the ways you can do this, if you, like me, are not like a great systems person, is I hire people to set up my technology for me. I now have a VA and a company that works with me and bigger stuff than just that, but it's worth the $1,000, $2,000 to get all this stuff handled. I think that, emails and stuff like that, you guys can write yourself. Create a really great Canva template. All of these things that give you an income accelerator if you're interested, but make sure that you're kind of at least having PDFs you reuse of like how to prepare for a closet edit and stuff like that. If you're not good at setting up the tech part, hire somebody to do it for you. It's worth every penny. One of the ways you can get really good at this is document things. So if you're a virtual stylist, go ahead and make sure that you're recording all of your virtual calls with styling clients. And then you can even take it, get those videos transcribed, get the audio, get it transcribed, and then put it into like ChatGPT or something and ask it to create a workflow for you and say like, where would I put emails? How would I make this better? Like once you have all of those transcripts of all of the calls, say it's a closet edit, a shop, and a style, and do like a call where you go over the shopping or something, you can take all of that and then ask AI to kind of make a system for you in your business. Or you could say, hey, I want to make systems in my business. Can you give me some prompts to give you information in order to have you write systems? Like I'm a huge proponent of using AI, and there is a limit because they're not stylists. AI has some really weird views of stylists. So it may not be as deep, but it's definitely a good place to start. The more you automate your requests for feedback, the less personal it is. So I think that's my last one, is just make sure you're automating things that you tend to get emotional about and don't follow through on, because, we never know how somebody else is really experiencing us. We can only be responsible for our side of making the experience as good as we could. And there's going to be things that happen that make us feel a certain kind of way because we're people. But if you can get your systems to help support you in that, it is well worth it. I use HoneyBook, highly recommend it. I know lots of people that love Dubsado. That was a little too complex for my brain. But yeah, there's so much great stuff out there. And even if you just start with like booking software, so someone can just, get on a sales call with you from an automatic link and you're not going back and forth with, times, that's also part of a client experience. And so that's a great first step for you. So I hope this helped you. Implementing really strong systems to get a great client experience is such a key part of being a great stylist. And I know everybody listening is a great stylist. So once we get this in our system, you're all going to be unstoppable. And that 30 to 40% repeat client rate will seem like, obviously, it's done, which is what I want for every single one of you. All right, I'll talk to you next episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. It turns out that social proof is actually pretty important. So if you could help me out, I'd so appreciate it. If you just had a quick free moment and could leave me a rating or review on the podcast app, that would be killer. And even better, if you wanted to share this episode on Instagram and tag me, that would totally make my day. And it would bring so much more awareness to the podcast and would help other stylists just like you who are looking to build lucrative styling business, because the better each of us does, the better all of us do. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll chat with you next time.